Okay, this is Barbara Ellistad with the Mesquite Citizen Journal, and we're with ALitman today. He's coming up on his 100th day
Already?
as a city councilman for Mesquite. And so we're going to talk to him. We're actually sitting out on his back patio. He's got a beautiful home. So if you hear some traffic in the background, that's why. It's right off of the street. So what we're going to start with today, Al, is you've been up on the dais now for almost 100 days. And so I guess my first question is, how does it look now from the inside as opposed to when you were campaigning from the outside?
It looks good. It looks comfortable. I thought at first, perhaps, sitting up there and looking down at all the people in the audience, it would be a little bit nerve-wracking, but it's not.
Good.
But, it's Mesquite. The people are good people. They're not coming to the council meetings to throw rocks at you. They're coming there to get legitimate answers to legitimate questions. And I personally feel very comfortable with any answer that I give, because I think about the answer before I pop up with something. Which is part of my goal, and that's to evaluate everything we do carefully before I make a decision. And it may not be the popular decision, or it may be a popular decision, but I think about it before I jump into anything. And it's getting us off, I think, to a real good start, because I'm seeing that from the other council members also. And the mayor is a very relaxed individual. We feel I think everybody feels comfortable up there. We've made our usual mistakes, forgetting to push the right button. The only thing we've been really warned on is don't leave the sound button on if you're not going to speak, because if you whisper something, the whole world's going to hear you.
Yeah.
And that's a good warning.
Yeah. Well, talk about some of the changes that you've been a part of in the last 100 days. You have voted to open tech reviews to the public. You've brought back school crossing guards. You were part of the vote to rescind the code of conduct. Talk about some of those issues, because those were campaign issues. And in the last 100 days, all of you have really worked on a lot of those campaign issues.
Well, one of the most important issues that you didn't mention was the election date change.
Yes. And now
of course, we have a helicopter.
Now we have a helicopter coming.
Which I never see, but that's not in the medevac here, I don't think.
No.
Okay, we'll wait 1 second. I don't know what that is. They're not used to flying one of those.
I would call that my luck.
Yeah, I used to fly in that. That's a good one. They stay up. The election date change. We were very surprised, I think, overall as a council, that the people voted for it, because our gut feeling was it would go down in flames, and it didn't.
Right.
But with this group now, the people want it, the people get it. And that's, I think, the way we're going to look at most issues that come up. If it benefits the people and they've got the right information, they should get what they asked for, instead of advisories where, we take it into consideration and then shelve it or something.
Yeah.
Didn't affect me either which direction, but that's
because you're
I ended
in
up with
office
a
for 2 years.
term, and that's just fine the way it sits right now. The other council members, maybe I don't know what their attitude is about all of a sudden they're going to be there another year and a half over what they thought.
Yeah.
But that's up to them to decide how to handle that.
Right.
So that was an issue I think that was very important, because that's one of our first real transparent issues.
Oh, I think it was because almost all of the newly elected members of the dais, so I can include the mayor in that, all said they did not want those election dates changed. And so, in effect, they did opposite of what they said they wanted.
Absolutely, and that's no problem, because it's the people's vote, it's the people's will, not the will of a few people sitting up there dictating how things are going to be run in the city. And I was happy with that. as far as the bringing back the crossing guards, that was a logical, feasible thing to do. And as you well know, the city in the year prior spent more money not having crossing guards than having crossing guards.
Right.
Which I had predicted in the first place.
Yeah.
Maybe their intentions were fine, but it didn't work. Hopefully our intentions are good and they will work.
Right.
So that was an important issue to us. The other issues you mentioned, the
code of conduct,
the code of yeah.
tech reviews.
Yeah, the tech reviews, to me, it's kind of a no-brainer. It should be open to the public. Let them know what we're going to be talking about in the coming week. And we've solved a few issues of not putting things on the agenda at the last moment. Although I can see things being changed around under emergency situations,
right.
but not normally.
Not normally.
And we welcome the public there. We're not getting a lot of people there, and I guess that's to be expected. It's the middle of a day on a Monday, but it's about the best time you can work it out for everybody involved, so that part works.
Yeah.
The other issues we've talked about, well, there's some underway right now that we're working on that I think are very, very important. And on the coming agenda this week will be to change, hopefully, the ordinance on solicitation. I'm the one that's the petitioner of that, so that the scouts can get back out there and do what we wanted them to do. And I don't see any opposition on the council to it, and I think it'll pass. So that's on the 11th of this month's agenda. In fact, we were able to move that up from the 25th to the 11th with a little moving of things around. And I'm real positive about that.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So now it does leave open the fact that virtually anybody can solicit, because the laws are very open about that. You know, you can't exclude one group for another group. And I investigated that fairly carefully with the city attorney and the deputy city attorney to make sure that that was a legitimate way to go, and it is. So that should go through this week. Another important item on our agenda is coming up is the modification of the requirements for a city manager. So
yes.
that, yeah, and that's extremely important.
Very.
So that the city manager just doesn't have ultimate control over everything, but has somebody else to answer to. And I think it'll give us a little better organized government that way.
Yeah.
It's a little bit unique from some of the job descriptions I've seen for city managers, but I think it's a well thought out ordinance change. So that's there. Future items, we're popping up over the left and right.
Well,
yeah.
you mentioned during the campaign that you were very concerned about the city's financial situation.
Absolutely.
And with the mayor's town hall meeting where he just released the final numbers for fiscal year 2010-2011, it's not a $2 million deficit, more close to a $1 million deficit. But talk to us about the city's financial situation.
Compared to other cities, we're in great shape. Compared to where we ought to be, we're not in great shape.
Okay.
Because in order to achieve what we've done so far, there's been a lot of layoffs in the city.
Yeah.
And a lot of departments have been decimated. We still have to remain very vigilant on this issue. Just because it didn't look too bad right now doesn't mean it's great by any means. And I'm very, very fiscally conservative. If we don't have to spend it, I don't think we will. And we're not filling positions just to say, okay, it wasn't bad, now we can add somebody back in. So we're going to watch it, I think, very, very carefully. And the mayor's come up with some pretty creative ideas on keeping money together. I don't know if he's spoken about them yet. I can reserve them for him.
Okay.
Which goes along with his management style. I've done some assistance with that. I've wrote up some things that you could virtually instruct staff on into a new way of managing the city.
Okay.
Which comes from the mayor, not from me.
Well, we look forward to the unveiling of those ideas. But developing budgets and making spending decisions in the past seems to some to be almost a seat of the pants affair. And the mayor has talked about improving the processes using more quantitative measures. Do you agree with that approach, or what are your
I
ideas?
agree fully with it. We have to know that when we spend $1, we're getting $1's worth of whatever we're getting.
Okay.
I think the approach before was just budget some money, and if you spend it, whatever, good. If you don't spend it, okay. But that's going to be changing now. We're going to be looking, I think, at every item that goes out the door to see if we can't save some money, yet not reduce the services that people expect.
Right.
And I think with that approach, we'll be fine. But it's going to take a little while to, number one, you've got a mindset that's different within the city because they've operated in a different fashion.
Right.
So now we're switching gears midstream.
Yeah.
And I'm all for it because it's a positive change. And you know, in the worst case scenario, you back up a little bit and reassess it and analyze it and then move on again. And I think that's his style of doing things. And I think we've got a council that understands that we're in a new world and a new environment fiscally.
Yes.
And this is the way we're going to have to operate, unless we want to see ourselves next to North Las Vegas in the headlines.
No, we don't.
We don't. We don't.
Well, can you give us a few more concrete ideas that you might have about improving the budget picture through the rest of just this fiscal year? You know, we're still running about $1 million
Yes,
deficit.
we are.
That's a lot to make up.
The problem is I've been looking at some of the items in the budget, and we are running pretty lean in the city right now. I'm afraid if we cut too much more out of it as we go along, that we're not going to be able to provide the services the city needs. I think if we can just stay status quo, and I see a brighter future ahead in the next couple of years, we'll start making that money back up. But to go absolute bare bones, I think we'd be hurting our community right now. But I don't see increasing anything in the way of expenditures. If you notice, we're not replacing positions as they
Right.
come vacant, and that's going to be a big cost saver.
Yeah.
With salaries being really the largest outlay, and then benefits that go with it. But then again, we can't decimate departments and expect any work to get accomplished if there's nobody there to do the job. And I
Right.
walk through City Hall sometimes and I can't find anybody because there's nobody in the department any longer.
Well, I was on the second floor of City Hall the other day and noticed that where the offices are for mayor and the councilmen have offices in there, that the entire floor is now vacant.
Yes.
Not even the mayor's office is not located there anymore. I understand he's moved down to the first floor, and the second floor isn't even used.
Not at present, and I don't know what the future plans are for the second floor. They're there. It's, you know, obviously. You're paying for air conditioning no matter what, and the lighting is not anything to be concerned about. But I think the mayor wants to be closer in. He's more accessible downstairs than trying to get through glass doors and making appointments to come up there and so forth. The mayor no longer has the personal secretary that the prior mayors had.
I noticed that.
And it isn't necessary, apparently in this case, because it's functioning fine the way it is. So being down where he is located, I imagine, just makes everything more accessible so he can get done what he needs to get done without having a private secretary, which is expensive.
Yes.